In a bustling city, James sat at his desk, the hum of the office swirling around him like a distant storm. The late afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows, casting a soft glow over the papers scattered before him. He was supposed to be focused, but his mind drifted, tangled in thoughts of her. Leela was new at the company, but there was something about her that captivated him. It was more than her bright smile or the way she laughed at the simplest jokes. She had a spark, a zest for life that made everything feel a little lighter, a little brighter, but there was a catch. The office was old, filled with secrets from years gone by. Locked doors lined the hallways like sentinels, guarding stories that were never meant to be shared. The door she spoke of had a thick, rusty keyhole that seemed to whisper of mysteries inside. James had laughed when she first said it, brushing it off as a playful tease. But as days turned to weeks, he began to wonder what she meant. Was there really something behind that door, something that could change everything between them? The more he thought about it, the more he felt drawn to her. Each time they passed in the hallway, her laughter echoed in his mind. It was like a siren's call pulling him closer. One evening, the office was quiet. Most coworkers had already left for the day, leaving only the click of keyboards and the rustle of papers in the air. As he looked at the flickering screen in front of him, he realized he couldn't shake her words. With a mix of curiosity and determination, he stood, his heart racing. He walked over to the old door, feeling the weight of unspoken secrets behind it. His hand hovered over the knob. What was behind this door that made Leela so adamant? 1,000 possibilities raced through his mind, each one adding to the intensity of the moment. He hesitated briefly and pressed his ear against the cool, wooden surface. Silence, no hushed whispers, no faint sounds, just the steady hum of the building, but underneath it all, he sensed a pulse, an energy that felt alive. Returning to his desk, the allure of the door consumed him. He wanted to unlock it, not just to get to the secrets inside, but to discover what lay ahead for him and Leela. They had begun building a friendship, a connection that felt electric, but with something lurking behind that door, waiting to unravel it. Days turned to weeks. Every time he saw Leela, the warning replayed in his mind. What was at stake? He couldn't let fear hold him back anymore. That night, he made a decision. He would unlock the door. As he gathered the courage, a palpable tension filled the air. He could almost feel Leela beside him, urging him on. With a racing heart, James searched for the key. It was hidden deep in a drawer, almost forgotten. His fingers trembled a little as he picked it up. This was it, the moment everything could change. He made his way back to the door, the key heavy in his palm. There it was, the ancient keyhole waiting to absorb the metal. He took a deep breath, slid the key in, and turned it slowly. There was a satisfying click, a sound that echoed through the quiet hall. The door creaked open, revealing darkness on the other side. He paused again, fighting the urge to step back, but the thought of Leela, of what could be, pushed him forward. As his foot crossed the threshold, he flipped on the light switch. The dim flicker slowly illuminated the space inside. It was musty, filled with dust and shadow, but there, against the far wall, sat an old, forgotten desk. On the desk lay a stack of papers covered in a thick layer of dust. Curiosity urged him forward as he rummaged through the ancient documents. They were all memos, reports left behind by previous employees, faded notes jotted down long ago. But then he saw it, a familiar name scribbled across one of the papers. His heart dropped. What was she doing in this old archive? He flipped through more pages. There were timelines of projects, correspondence between employees, but what caught his eye was a series of drawings nestled within the documents. They were sketches of designs and plans that looked familiar. James's mind raced. Leela was more than just a new employee. She had a past, one intertwined with the very company he worked for. It was as if the pieces of a puzzle he never asked to solve were starting to fit together. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hallway. His breath caught in his throat. He turned swiftly, and there she was, Leela, standing at the doorframe, her eyes wide. She exclaimed, her voice tinged with both surprise and a hint of fear. I opened the door, he stammered, his gaze darting to the papers, to her. I told you to stay away, she said, her tone shifting to one of urgency. Why? What's going on, Leela? His heart raced, a whirlpool of emotions stirring inside him. Leela stepped closer, the tension hanging thick in the air. These are my designs for a project that never happened. It's complicated, James. I didn't want you to get wrapped up in it. He asked, his voice low, almost trembling. You've been holding back. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she struggled to find the words. I thought I could leave it behind. This job was supposed to be a fresh start, if you knew everything. He took a step closer, sensing her vulnerability. I want to see the real you, Leela, not just some perfect version. For a moment, everything hung in the balance. The room felt charged with unspoken words, a bond simmering just beneath the surface. I had a bad experience before, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. The designs belonged to a failed project that cost a lot. I thought I could escape it by starting over. James reached out, gently brushing a stray tear from her cheek. You're not a failure, you're so much more than that. I see your heart, your passion. Leela inhaled sharply, and in that moment he knew he had broken through. The door had opened not just to a dusty room, but to their connection, deeper than he ever imagined. With a newfound resolve, they stayed in that room together, poring over the papers. She explained every detail, every line of her designs, and he listened, fully present. As the night crept on, laughter echoed where silence had once reigned. The shadows melted away, and a bond formed between them like the strongest steel. Leela looked at him, her eyes glowing with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper, something that hinted at the possibilities that lay ahead. "I didn't know if I could let you in. Maybe we're just getting started," he said with a soft smile. The old office had held secrets, but it also held promise. Together, they returned the desk to its rightful place, the sketches now no longer forgotten. It felt like they had taken a step into a new chapter where everything was possible. As they walked side by side, the lock on the door behind them clicking shut, James realized that sometimes the most significant unlocks aren't just of doors but of hearts ready to embrace their truths despite their fears. In that quiet office filled with fading light, as the world outside continued, they began to forge a bond that could withstand anything together. He stood before the door, his heart pounding like a drum. It felt as if the weight of the world rested on those rusted hinges. Just hours ago, Leela had warned him to stay away, a hint of urgency lacing her words. "Until you unlock that office door," she had said, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that pierced through the mundane chatter of the office. Now the dimly lit hallway echoed with uncertainty, shadows flickering as if they were alive. The door loomed before him, old and worn, like a guardian of secrets he was desperate to uncover. He had hesitated then, but now that thought nagged at him relentlessly. What could possibly be behind there, and why was it so important for him to unlock it? James's fingers trembled as they brushed against the cool metal of the doorknob. He could hear the distant hum of his coworkers' laughter from the break room, the normalcy of their lives contrasting starkly with the tension mounting within him. He took a deep breath and pushed the door slightly, testing it. It was locked, just as he had suspected. He turned back to his desk, the mundane piles of files and paperwork mocking him. He could plunge back into the comfort of routine, forget this moment, but the thought of Leela, her piercing gaze, her mysterious tone kept him tethered to that door. What secrets did she bury behind those words? The next day, he had returned with determination. After a bit of searching, he'd found the key nearly buried under some old office supplies, covered in dust like a ghost waiting to be awakened. That morning, his heart raced as he paced back and forth, finally taking it, the cold metal cool against his skin. It felt heavy, not just with the weight of the key, but with the gravity of what it might unlock. With a resolve unlike any he had felt before, he strode once more to that office door. The hallway felt alive, words of encouragement from Leela echoing in his mind. She believed in him. But why? He inserted the key into the lock, feeling the mechanism shift beneath his fingers. The quiet click that followed sent shivers down his spine, both terrifying and exhilarating. He opened the door slowly, anticipation rippling through him. The room was cloaked in darkness, a place lost in time, untouched and forgotten. James stepped inside, the light flickering on above him, illuminating the room in a warm glow. Dust motes danced in the air, and a wave of mustiness wrapped around him. It felt like stepping into a time capsule. Despite the dust, the air pulsed with an unnameable energy. What had Leela been keeping so carefully hidden? To his left sat an ancient desk, its surface littered with stacks of yellowing documents. As he cautiously approached, the cramped space exuded a mix of nostalgia and entrapment. Papers lay scattered, some half-finished sketches, others filled with technical notes. There was even an old coffee mug, stained and cracked. This was more than just an office, it was a story waiting to be told. He began to scan the documents, each piece revealing a fragment of a different world. And then he found it, a set of blueprints that took his breath away. They weren't just any designs, they were intricate, detailed plans for a project that had ambitious goals, far beyond anything anyone at the company had attempted. His heart thudded in his chest. Leela had created this. These ideas raced in his mind, exhilarating and daunting at once. He remembered her passion, how she lit up when discussing ideas during their late-night brainstorming sessions. She had wanted this to see the light of day, but why had she kept it all hidden? The question twisted in his stomach, a feeling of dread creeping in. The secrecy only deepened his admiration for her, complicating his feelings in ways he hadn't expected. Suddenly, he felt a presence behind him. Leela stood at the doorway, her figure illuminated by the hallway light, casting a long shadow into the room. "I told you to stay away," she said, her voice low, a mix of fear and defiance. "I couldn't," he replied, turning to face her. His heart raced as he gestured to the blueprint spread before him. "This is incredible." She stepped inside, the door creaking slightly as she closed it behind her. "You weren't supposed to find this," James insisted, stepping closer. "This isn't just an idea, this is potential." Her vulnerability was palpable, and with it, the connection he felt toward her grew stronger, but her brow furrowed in distress. "You don't understand the risks. I put everything into this, and when it fell apart, when I faced failure, I just wanted to start fresh where I wasn't haunted by it." There was honesty dripping from her words, but also a fear that rang true. Failure is often more complex than it seems on the outside. It can leave scars that linger long after the embarrassment fades. James stepped closer, his voice gentle. "We all face the possibility of failure, Leela. The tension in her shoulders softened slightly at his words. She glanced down, recognizing the truth might be tougher than she wanted to admit. She asked, her voice laced with doubt, "Then we pick ourselves up and try?" "Together," he said, gazing into her eyes. Hope ignited in his chest, not just for her but for the potential they shared. For a moment they stood in silence, mulling over the weight of the past and the promise of the future. Each pulse of the clock ticked in rhythm with their thoughts. James took a deep breath, feeling the tension ease from the air. "So, what if we do this?" Leela's gaze flickered, doubt battling with hope. "Absolutely," he affirmed, the fire of inspiration igniting within him as he imagined the possibilities. "We can work through it together." She looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time. The dusty office, once filled with despair, now felt like a sanctuary, a place where dreams and determination could intertwine. "But it will take a lot of work," she warned, her voice shaky. "I'm ready." His eyes searched hers, willing her to see the same spark within herself that he saw so clearly. A hesitant smile crept onto her face, softening the lines of uncertainty etched around her mouth. "Okay." With that, a partnership was forged right in that forgotten office. Together they began sorting through every paper, every sketch, bringing life back to the ideas that had been shrouded in fear for too long. Days passed, each filled with laughter and shared moments. They bonded in ways they never could have imagined, sketching designs on paper strewn across the old desk, while passing around cups of the terrible office coffee that only fueled their late-night marathon sessions. They challenged each other, sharing hopes and dreams while navigating the complexities of their project. Whenever doubt crept in, whether from an unforeseen obstacle or the haunting specter of past failures, they confronted it head-on, turning their fears into stepping stones instead. One day, as dusk faded into the deep blues of night, they sat in that office surrounded by stacks of paper and the remnants of old coffee cups. "I never thought I could feel so alive again," Leela admitted, a glimmer of excitement sparkling in her eyes. "I told you just needed to unlock that door," James teased gently, making her laugh. As they shared quiet moments planning, dreaming, and allowing laughter to resonate within those walls, the door transformed from a barrier of secrets into a metaphorical gateway to possibility. Months spiraled by. Their project grew from simple sketches to a full-fledged proposition that turned eyes in the company. Their dedication and newfound partnership captivated everyone around them. The success they achieved was exhilarating, but even more so was the bond they had forged in that dimly lit office. One afternoon, when they finally revealed their project to the executive team, Leela's anxieties churned in her stomach. As she stood in front of the large conference table, her anxiety washed over her all at once. But then she felt James's reassuring hand against her back. That simple gesture grounded her, reminding her that she wasn't alone. When they finished their presentation, the room burst into applause. The executives recognized the brilliance of their work, the potential that lay ahead, and just as importantly, the unyielding chemistry that powered their collaboration. As they left the meeting, Leela turned to James, her eyes shining. "I couldn't have done this without you." James grinned, feeling that warmth in his chest again. "And you reminded me of the importance of dreams." They walked down the hallway, chatting excitedly, their bond now tangible, a celebration of not only success but of trust and vulnerability. From that day forward, the office was no longer a place of fear or doubt for Leela. It became a canvas for their dreams, filled with laughter and endless possibility. No longer hidden behind that door, their story flourished, a narrative of resilience and collaboration. In the depths of their hearts, a promise blossomed. Whenever they turned the key to unlock doors in life, be it figurative or literal, they would do it together. Sometimes treasures lay behind locked doors, waiting patiently for the brave souls willing to find them. Together they faced everything ahead, no longer fearing the shadows, but welcoming the light of true partnership. He stood frozen in the dimly lit hallway, the echo of Leela's words ringing in his ears. Her voice had been clear, a sharp warning that sent chills down his spine. But there he was, alone, staring at the heavy door that seemed to pulse with its own secrets. James had never thought much about the old office doors in the building, worn and aged like forgotten relics, but the moment Leela spoke those words, everything shifted. Why this door? Why did Leela seem so intent on keeping him away? An unsettling curiosity gripped him, forcing him to confront the mystery head-on. That day the office hummed with the sound of busy employees, the tapping of keyboards blending into a background noise that felt oddly comforting. But for James, the familiarity faded. His thoughts were tangled in the enigma of that door. Each time he glanced at it, a knot tightened in his stomach. What lay beyond? Was there really something important hidden behind the faded wood? Weeks passed, each day a new test of his resolve. Despite the humdrum of office life, the allure of that door grew stronger. Every glance toward it felt like a silent invitation, and every laugh shared with Leela deepened the mystery. She was an incredible force, vibrant and full of energy, but every time she spoke of her past, a shadow flickered across her face, a glimpse of something she wouldn't reveal. One Friday afternoon, the office was nearly empty. The clock ticked slowly and the sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting long shadows. As James worked, he glanced at the door and felt an overwhelming urge to know what lay behind it. It was more than mere curiosity, it felt like a calling. Taking a deep breath, he rose from his desk. Each step toward the door felt heavy with anticipation. Heart racing, he stopped just before the threshold, the aged wood before him seeming to whisper secrets he could only wonder about. He raised his hand to the doorknob, fingers trembling as they brushed against the cold metal. What if Leela was right? What if there was something he was not meant to see? But there was also a fire inside him, one that told him he had to know. With a firm resolve, he turned the knob. The door was locked, just as Leela had mentioned. He stepped back, frustration brewing in his chest. He was determined to unravel the mystery. The next week, he sought answers. Hours spent with coworkers trying to procure keys led to dead ends, each conversation only deepening his desire to unlock the secrets held in that room. He couldn't let it go. Any chance encounter with Leela reignited his determination. During one late-night work session, Leela joined him in the quiet of the office. She looked radiant under the dim lights, but the weight in her eyes told a different story. She asked softly, her gaze serious. "Of course I am," he replied, leaning forward, his heart pounding. "What's behind it?" She searched his eyes, the air around them thick with unspoken truths. James couldn't shake the feeling that her past was intricately tied to that door. The warning was clear, and yet it only fueled his need to understand. But what if it's important to you? At that moment, something shifted in Leila's expression. "It is, but my past, it's messy." He understood then, for he too had corners of his life he kept hidden. "We all have messy pasts, Leela," he said, his voice gentle, "but I want to help you through it." A flicker of hesitation crossed her features, but it was gone before he could decipher it. "Just promise me something," she said, her voice steady. Her warning felt cryptic, yet it resonated deeply within him. He needed to know what lay behind that door, but at what cost. The next couple of weeks passed in a blur of work and anticipation. The warning echoed in his mind, but he couldn't let it go. Every time he passed that door, it felt like a siren call he couldn't ignore. Finally, one evening, alone in the office with a heavy heart, James made a decision. It was time. He couldn't wait any longer. He'd searched for the key, and it was time to put it to use. He rummaged through old desk drawers, the excitement of discovery igniting a fire within him. Each clatter and rustle felt electric, a build-up to a moment he could hardly fathom. Then, as he searched, he stumbled across a small wooden box pushed to the back of a drawer. Carefully, he opened it. Inside lay an old key, covered in dust yet shimmering with potential. His heart raced. Could this be the key? The very key that would uncover the mysteries of that door. He held it tightly, a sense of destiny swirling around him. That evening, with adrenaline coursing through his veins, James stood before the door once more. Hands shaking, he fitted the key into the lock. The mechanical clunk melded with the sound of his heartbeat, a drum roll to the unveiling of secrets long buried. He turned the key. The door creaked open, revealing a dim, musty room filled with layers of dust and forgotten memories. A sense of dread mixed with excitement wove through him. As the light flickered to life, he took a cautious step inside. The room was a treasure trove of old files and faded blueprints, remnants of dreams left to decay in the shadows. Papers lay scattered across the desk, and on the wall hung sketches ideas never realized. James' heart thumped louder as he picked up a few documents, flipping through them with growing fascination. Then he found her name, Leela Morgan, scrawled across a design. His heart sank. He didn't just uncover the remnants of a project, he stumbled upon her deepest fears and aspirations. Each sketch told a story, one he'd never known. But just as he began to piece together the mystery, he heard footsteps behind him. Leela paused in the doorway, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. She asked, her voice trembling. "I unlocked the door," he said, turning to face her. "Leela, these designs, this is incredible." She stepped inside, the breath hitching in her throat. "I didn't want you to see me like this. I was ashamed, James. This project failed and I buried it." "It's not just failure," he urged, urgency lacing his words. "It's incredible potential." Leela closed her eyes, turmoil evident on her features. "You don't understand. I let everyone down once before." James stepped forward, concern etching his brow. "And hiding it away won't help you either. You can't escape who you are or what you've created." Tears glistened in her eyes. In that moment, he understood the weight of her fears. So many people carry the weight of past failures, believing those scars will define their future. But she had to know it was okay to embrace imperfection. "Then we face it together." Leela studied him, her uncertainty battling against the hope in his words. "Absolutely, we'll breathe life into these designs." She nodded slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing as if a heavy weight was finally lifted. "Okay." With determination, they returned to the desk, both hearts racing with excitement and apprehension. As they pored over the blueprints, revising and drawing new sketches, the room began to glow with renewed energy. The air filled with laughter and ideas, a creative force reigniting dreams long buried. The weeks rolled by, each moment pulling them closer together. They spent late nights brainstorming, battling fatigue with coffee and laughter, rekindling the sparks of creativity that had once been extinguished. Leela began to shed the layers of shame, allowing the authentic version of herself to shine through. Their bond blossomed, transforming the office from a place of fear into one filled with life and potential. Leela learned that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a stepping stone toward immense strength, and then came the day. They stood before their project presentation, the culmination of countless late nights and shared hopes. The room buzzed with anticipation as they unveiled their work. James watched as Leela illuminated the room with her passion, every word flowing from her mouth confidently. When they finished, the room erupted. The applause was thunderous, washing over them like a wave of validation. Leela's eyes sparkled with a mixture of disbelief and joy, and at that moment she realized she had overcome the shadow of her past. Afterward, as they walked out of the conference room, the significance of their achievements settled in. She looked at James, gratitude shining in her eyes. "And you showed me the power of resilience," he replied, a smile creeping across his face. Together they ventured back into the office, the early evening sun casting a warm glow. Walking towards the door that had once held so much fear, Leela paused, turning to face James. With a shared look of understanding, they stepped into a future where dreams were no longer locked away, a beautiful narrative that would continue to unfold. The shadows had lifted, and the possibilities ahead shimmered brightly. Together they would face whatever came next, hand in hand, ready to unlock the doors of life, embracing every moment with courage and love. He never thought a dusty old door could change everything. But there he was, standing in front of it, the dim glow from the flickering fluorescent lights casting eerie shadows down the hallway. "Stay away until you unlock the office door," Leela had said, her voice a blend of caution and something deeper, something urgent. James had brushed it off at first, a playful challenge wrapped in mystery. Leela was known around the office for her quirkiness, but now her words felt like a riddle he needed to solve. He turned, peering back down the hallway where they had shared countless laughs, brainstorming ideas that seemed to float like butterflies on a breeze. But that door loomed large in his mind, keeping secrets he was determined to unearth. Days turned into weeks. Every time he passed that door, he felt a magnetic pull, the kind that made his heart race and his palms sweat. It was an ordinary door in an ordinary office building, yet it held an extraordinary grip on his thoughts. Why did Leela seem so concerned? It wasn't just curiosity, it was an insatiable need to know what was hidden behind it. He tried to focus on his work, going through the motions as usual, typing up reports and attending meetings. But with each glance toward that door, his mind wandered deep into a void of possibility. There were whispers among the staff about secrets the office held, rumors annoying and tantalizing, but this door felt different, personal somehow. And then one evening, as the last of his coworkers trickled out of the office, he found himself alone. The tension in the air thickened, and as he stared at the door again, the warning echoed in his mind. He could almost hear Lila's voice, a mix of warning and intrigue. That night he decided he had to do it. He would unlock the door. A surge of adrenaline coursed through him. As he rummaged through old desk drawers in search of something, anything that could help him, his heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spotted an old key tucked away in a corner, hidden beneath piles of forgotten paperwork. He grasped the key tightly. This was it. This was his moment. With steady breaths, he approached the door again. The cool metal of the doorknob felt foreign in his palms as he inserted the key, his heart thundering in his chest. With a click, the door swung open, revealing an interior cloaked in shadow. The light flickered on, illuminating a room flecked with dust and memories. Papers were strewn haphazardly across an old wooden desk, the air thick with the scent of mildew and neglect. As he stepped inside, it felt like entering a time capsule, a space lost to the world, holding secrets from a different era. He moved cautiously, the wooden floor creaking beneath his feet. As he began to sift through the documents, he felt as though he was peeling back layers of time. One note caught his eye, trembling in his hand. It was a memo, the words faded but still legible. They spoke of projects long abandoned, dreams dashed against the walls. And then he found something even more personal, sketches of designs, plans that looked eerily familiar. His breath caught in his throat as he realized those sketches were Leela's, her name clearly marked in the corner. Were these the projects she once dreamed about? As he flipped through them, a sense of urgency swept over him. These weren't just drawings, they were pieces of her heart left behind in a forgotten room. Just then, footsteps echoed in the hallway and the door creaked open. Leela stood there, her expression a mix of horror and something else, relief, perhaps. The weight of her unspoken words hung heavily in the air. "You shouldn't have come in," she whispered, her eyes reflecting a tumult of emotions. James replied, his voice rising slightly. "These designs, why would you keep them hidden?" She stepped further into the room, the door closing softly behind her. "I told you to stay away for a reason," she hissed, pain lacing her tone. "These weren't just projects, they were my failures." James felt a pang of empathy, but hiding your past doesn't make it disappear. Leela's shoulders slumped, the weight of her past pressing down on her. "You don't understand. I poured my heart into these projects, and when they failed, it shattered me." "But I want to see you, all of you, the good and the bad," James urged, stepping closer. "We all have messy pasts." Her eyes glimmered with unshed tears. "What if I can't rise? Then we pick ourselves up and try again," he replied, taking her hands in his. At that moment, something shifted within Leela. Perhaps it was the warmth of James's words or the strength of his gaze that pierced through her carefully crafted walls. She took a deep breath, the air filled with hope. Okay. With renewed determination, they began to organize the room. Papers scattered everywhere seemed to come alive as they sorted through past failures and fractured dreams. Each sketch, each note became a piece of a new beginning, and slowly Leela started to breathe again. Days passed, then weeks spent in the old office. What started as a hidden chamber of fears transformed into a vibrant workspace. James and Leela would often stay late, laughter echoing off the walls as they rebuilt the designs together. The air crackled with possibility, their connection growing deeper with each long night spent poring over ideas. One evening they stood back, examining the new sketches they'd created. It felt both exhilarating and terrifying, as if they were standing on the brink of something grand. Leela looked at James, a spark of light in her eyes. "I didn't think I could ever show anyone this part of myself," she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "You're stronger than you realize," he said, the authenticity in his tone warming her heart. She felt something shift between them, a connection so strong that it felt almost surreal. It was no longer just about fulfilling a project. It was about two people uncovering layers of themselves they had kept hidden for too long, pushing boundaries together. But then reality struck. Their project had to be presented to the management team for approval, and the impending pressure weighed heavily upon them. Leela's anxiety crept back in as the day approached. What if the higher-ups rejected their hard work? What if it all crumbled again? As the day drew nearer, James found her pacing in their makeshift office, her fingers nervously ringing together. What if they don't like it? He stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "Layla, remember why we started this in the first place. It's not just about the approval, it's about the journey." She looked up, tears brimming in her eyes. James pulled her into a hug, sensing her distress. "It's already enough because it's a part of you. We've already won by overcoming the fear of failure together." As they stepped into the conference room, the weight of expectation pressed like a heavy curtain. The management team sat at the long table, watching them with expectant eyes. Leela stood at the front, clutching her notes like a lifeline. James was right by her side, a pillar of strength. With every word Leela spoke, her confidence blossomed, pulled from the depths of her struggles. The sketches and designs unfolded like a bloom, revealing their potential, the very essence of creativity reborn from the ashes of fear. As she looked out at the board, the murmurs of approval filled the room, lifting the curtain of anxiety that had loomed over her. When they finished, the table erupted into applause. Leela's heart soared, disbelief dancing across her features. They had done it, their hard work, their late nights, it was all recognized. As they walked out into the hallway, James broke the silence, a grin spreading across his face. "See?" Leela's laughter filled the air, bubbling with exhilaration. "I can't believe it." That evening, as they settled back in their shared space, she turned to him, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me. I couldn't have done this without you." James, feeling the warmth of her words, smiled back. "Together we made it happen. You found your strength." Together they stood before that office door, once a barrier, now a symbol of their triumph. Leela pushed it open, taking a deep breath, her heart filled with courage and hope. They had faced fears and failures, but they had also discovered resilience, laughter, and a dream to chase. "Let's keep moving forward," she said, her voice steady. James nodded, a new dawn breaking in their lives. As they stepped out, laughter echoing behind them, they embraced the journey ahead, ready to unlock every door life had to offer. No matter what challenges came their way, they would face them together, hand in hand, as partners in both work and life. In that moment, it was clear, they had not just unlocked the door, they had unlocked their futures, and together they were ready to embrace all that lay ahead, ever hopeful, ever strong. The moment James stepped into the quiet office one Friday evening, he felt a shiver run down his spine. The air was thick, heavy with the weight of unspoken words and hidden secrets. As he glanced around, his gaze fell upon the ominous door at the end of the hallway, old, rusted, and adorned with a tarnished doorknob that seemed to beckon him closer. Her words echoing in his mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that this door held something crucial. Perhaps it was the key to understanding her, or maybe it was merely a puzzle he couldn't resist solving. Leela was one of those people who drew you in a vibrant spirit with a passion for creativity. Yet beneath her laughter and enthusiasm there was a shadow, something lurking just out of reach. Weeks had passed since she uttered those words, and with each day his curiosity deepened. All around the office he could sense the mundane routine of work, the click of keyboards and the chatter of coworkers, but behind that door lay something different, something that called to him with an almost magnetic pull. What if he was missing a piece of Leela's story? Was there something from her past that she was trying to hide, a past that intertwined with that door? Questions churned in his mind, unsolved riddles that spiraled into an urgent need to uncover the truth. That evening he had set his sights on the door. He could almost taste the adrenaline as he approached it, an ordinary door in an ordinary office, yet pulsating with a sense of destiny. Taking a deep breath, James pushed against it, only to find it locked. Frustration bubbled within him, yet he felt an exhilarating sense of challenge. Determined to confront whatever lay behind the door, James began his quest for answers. As the days turned into routine office life, his mind constantly wandered back to Leela's warning. He observed every interaction they had, searching for clues, analyzing her laughter to find the cracks beneath her upbeat facade. One late afternoon, as he worked alone, his colleagues long gone, he finally found what he was looking for. Buried deep in a drawer was an old key, covered in dust, its shape worn down with time. Clutching it tightly, he felt a mix of thrill and trepidation. This could be it. This could unlock whatever secrets were hidden away from the world. That night, he stood in front of the door once again. The key trembled in his hand, its edges sharp and cold against his fingertips. He took a deep breath, thoughts swirling in his mind like autumn leaves caught in a windstorm. Time felt suspended as he inserted the key into the lock, turning it slowly. The loud click reverberated through the empty office, and he couldn't help but wonder what he was about to discover. As he pushed the door open, a musty smell hit him like a wave, and he flicked on the light. Dust motes danced in the beam, swirling around him as he stepped inside. The room was filled with old furniture, forgotten trinkets, and papers scattered across the table, each item telling a story patient enough to wait for someone to listen. James's heart raced as he approached the desk cluttered with fading blueprints and yellowed notes. Each sheet he picked up was a breadcrumb leading him through Leela's past. He found sketches of designs filled with ingenuity, ideas brimming with potential ideas he never knew she had, and then he saw it. It was a reminder, a piece of encouragement, but it felt more like an echo of despair. For a moment it struck him that perhaps this wasn't just about incompleteness, but about the shadow of failure that loomed over her. Just then the door creaked open and Leela walked in, her eyes wide, a mix of concern and fear flooding her features. She gasped, the breath rushing from her chest. "I unlocked it," he said, swallowing hard. "I needed to understand. I found." He held up the blueprints, urgency crackling in the air between them. "Leela, these are incredible. Why would you keep this from me?" Her face blanched, the color draining from her skin as if he had taken away her breath. She shouted, her voice trembling, revealing an undercurrent of desperation. "This isn't just a failed project, it's my shame, my everything." James's heart raced, not only from her outburst, but from a deep sense of empathy. "Lila, these designs are parts of you. You can't simply lock them away and pretend they don't exist. We all encounter failure, it's part of the journey." She looked down, tears shimmering like stars in her eyes, frustration melting into vulnerability. "But these aren't just blueprints, they're reminders of where I fell short. And yet here we are stronger than before," James urged, stepping closer. "You don't have to carry this alone." For a moment, Leela stood there, processing his words. Her voice dropped, revealing the quiet hope beneath the weight of her fears. "I do," he replied, warmth in his eyes. Slowly, she stepped toward the desk, her fingers brushing against the papers. She asked, her voice a mere whisper. "Then we pick ourselves up and start again," he said softly. "Together, you've already shown you're capable of such brilliance." As Leela looked at the blueprint, something changed within her. A flicker of light ignited in her gaze, igniting a spark of determination. "Okay," she finally said, her voice steadying. From that day on, the forgotten office transformed into a haven of creativity. Revisions were made, ideas brought to life, and each late-night brainstorming session felt electric with promise. They built on the past, drawing strength from their experiences and weaving a new narrative together. Weeks passed, and with each meeting, every late-night work session, James marveled as Leela blossomed. The shadows of the past that had once weighed her down began to dissipate like fog under the morning sun. Her laughter rang brighter, her confidence grew stronger, and most importantly, she started seeing herself as someone worthy of success. But with the approach of their project presentation to the management team, anxiety crept back in. She paced the cramped office, her fingers knotting together. "What if they don't like it?" Leela's voice trembled, fear flooding her. James moved beside her, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "Leela, focus. Remember why we created this. It's not just about what they think, it's about bringing an idea to life." Her eyes darted to him, uncertainty still lingering. He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Then we get up and try again. You are not defined by failures, you are defined by your resilience." They stood shoulder to shoulder in that tiny office. The monumental weight of her fears began to lighten, replaced by an unshakable resolve. If they were to face the world, they would do it together. The day of the presentation arrived, the air in the conference room thick with anticipation. James's heart raced as he shared meaningful glances with Leela. He sensed her nerves, but also her underlying strength. He whispered, squeezing her hand for comfort. "Ready," she replied, her voice now filled with determination. The management team sat before them, eyes glistening with interest. As Leela began to present their project, her confidence blazed through the nervous energy that had once consumed her. The initial apprehension melted away, revealing the fierce spirit he had come to admire. With each passing minute, she illuminated not just their work but her story, the trials and failures entwined in their journey of revival. The room filled with captivated silence as they unveiled their designs, painting a picture of potential and possibility. When it was over, the room erupted into applause, a vibrant chorus of approval washing over them. Joy filled Leela's eyes, and as she turned to James, tears spilled down her cheeks. This time they were tears of triumph. She exclaimed, a bright smile lighting her face. James pulled her into an embrace, his heart swelling with pride. "You did it, Leela. You faced your fears and turned them into something incredible." Days turned to weeks, and as they settled back into the rhythm of work, the once ominous door remained open in their hearts. Leela had not only unlocked a door in the office, but had also unlocked a part of herself she thought she'd lost. As they walked down the hall one day, the shadows of doubt faded away, replaced by dreams and possibilities. Leela turned to him, her face reflecting the strength she had found within. "And thank you for showing me the power of resilience," James replied, smiling. Their journey was far from over, but now they faced it united, embracing the challenges ahead. Together, they had proven that sometimes, to unlock miracles, you first have to unlock the doors holding you back. And so, with every step forward, they were ready to embrace whatever life had in store, hand in hand, hearts open, and dreams shining brighter than ever. The faint sound of footsteps echoed down the empty corridor, punctuated only by the occasional creak of old floorboards. James paused, his heart pounding in sync with the rhythm of his thoughts. But what did it all mean? Why did Leela seem so adamant about him staying away from a simple door, one that many had passed without a second glance? Standing before that rusted, aged door now, he felt a mix of intrigue and apprehension. The door loomed large, both physically and symbolically. It was a door unlike any other in the office, a door that whispered of secrets buried deep beneath its surface. The office was typically bustling with activity, the clatter of keyboards and the low murmur of conversations resonating throughout the space. Yet today felt different. Leela's warning hung heavily in the air, making every touch of the doorknob feel electric, every breath filled with anticipation. James could feel her presence in the back of his mind, as if she were a muse pulling him closer to something unknown. Weeks had flown by since Leela joined the team, a vibrant spark with an infectious laughter that fluttered through the office like a gentle breeze. He noticed how her eyes sparkled when she talked about her ideas, yet shadows often crossed her face, telling tales of stories unshared. Why was there a part of her locked away, just like the door he now stood before? He turned back to his desk, frustration pooling within him. He mumbled to himself. It was a term of mystery, dangerous yet alluring, pushing at the edges of his curiosity. Days turned into weeks, the curiosity festering like a wound that needed tending. He watched people pass that door, their lives oblivious to whatever secrets it held. Leela had made it clear that he should stay away, but each time he walked by, he felt as if destiny was nudging him closer. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the orange glow filtered through the windows, he finally broke. The emptiness of the office, now increasingly familiar, became an enticing backdrop, one last attempt at solving this riddle before the night wrapped itself around him like a shroud. He stood again before the old door, the key to his curiosity dangling in the recesses of his mind. He'd heard whispers about this office, stories of previous employees who left in a hurry or failed projects that ended up here. But regardless of the fears and failures, he felt compelled to unlock its mysteries. Leela had warned him, and that only kindled the flame even further. Staring at the faded wood, he remembered his decision to seek out a key. After hours of searching through old, dusty drawers with no luck, he stopped dead in his tracks. There it was, buried beneath a stack of neglected paperwork, the key. It was tarnished and old, yet promising. "Tonight," he said aloud to the empty office, determination flowing through him against his better judgment. With his heart racing, he slid the key into the lock, a visceral thrill coursing through him. The clink as he turned it echoed like a heartbeat, a sound that was both thrilling and terrifying. The door swung open, revealing a dimly lit room covered in dust and shadows. He stepped inside, the musty air wrapping around him like an old blanket long forgotten. Papers littered the desk, and old blueprints hung limply on the walls, dim memories of ambition tangled in despair. With every breath he took, the air was thick with secrets begging to be uncovered. James walked into the room, his heart pounding. Here lay untold stories and missed opportunities, remnants of dreams left to decay. He felt as if he had stepped into a time capsule, a place where days and years twisted together in a tangle of unfinished work. He poked through the files, his fingers brushing against the yellowed paper. The scattered documents spoke of previous projects that had gone awry, mishaps and miscalculations sketched on those forgotten blueprints, but just then one file caught his eye. He opened it, revealing pages filled with passionate ideas, sketches bursting with energy and creativity. His heart sank as he realized these weren't just measured designs, they were personal. These were Leela's dreams. He scoured each page, the words igniting his curiosity even more. He whispered into the empty room. Disbelief coursed through his veins as he pieced together the fragments of her creativity. Then, amid scattered sheets, a letter slipped from the file and fluttered to the floor. Picking it up, he felt the urgent pulse of connection pulse through the room. She had written about fear, about failure, about the very things that had clouded her brilliance. Just as he was unraveling her story, he heard footsteps behind him. Leela stood in the doorway, her expression a storm of emotion, fear, anger, relief, and something that looked like hope. she questioned with a tremor, her eyes locking onto his. I unlocked the door, he said, feeling a rush of determination but also concern for her reaction. I had to understand your designs. She shot back, stepping into the room, raw emotion radiating from her. It's not just old projects, it's my failures. James stepped toward her, feeling the air thickening between them. Leela, these aren't just failures, they're pieces of your journey. You can't hide them away forever. She paused, the emotions swimming in her eyes, the words halting in her throat. I buried them because I thought if I locked this door, I could erase the pain. I thought I could start fresh. Only to help you heal, he said softly, stepping closer, urging her to see beyond the veil of fear. Don't you see, each mistake has shaped you, made you stronger. You have a voice and it's powerful. She looked torn, wrestling with her emotions. What if I fail again? There's bravery in failure, Leela, he replied, feeling the truth of his words resonate between them. It's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about embracing them and rising above. As she stood there, a flicker of light ignited in her eyes, battling against the storm. I do. The sincerity of his voice hung in the air, anchoring her spiraling thoughts. After a moment that stretched like eternity, Leela nodded slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing just a fraction. Okay, with newfound energy, they set to work. The room began transforming, not just as a workspace, but as a cocoon where they could explore, create, and reshape the dreams that had once felt out of reach. Late nights turned into early mornings, and laughter punctuated the air as they crafted new designs, revisited old concepts, and reignited ideas long buried. As the days went by, walls that had once felt oppressive now felt exhilarating, electric with possibility. Each brainstorming session brought them closer, revealing layers of creativity previously hidden. The more Leela opened up, the brighter her spark became, illuminating the room around them, but shadows still lurked. The impending presentation weighed heavily on their hearts as they prepared to unveil their work to the larger team. Doubts began to creep in again, a nagging voice of apprehension whispering that old fears wouldn't shake loose so easily. On the night before the presentation, Leela paced restlessly. What if they don't accept it? Her voice trembled, anxiety coursing through her veins. James stepped toward her, his expression firm yet gentle. Leela, remember our journey. It's not defined by approval or rejection. When I was younger, she began hesitantly, I put everything into my projects, some soared but others fell flat. James reached for her hands, grounding her. Then we'll face it together. You've already proven your strength. Every setback has taught you something. Her eyes shimmered with tears, and he wiped away a few that fell. She whispered, vulnerability etched on her face. Then we pick ourselves up, we learn. His words flooded with sincerity. They stood together, two souls standing at the precipice of a new beginning. As morning arrived, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. With each step toward the presentation room, James felt Leela's tension spilling over into his own heart. But he blocked it out, focusing on what lay ahead, their hard work, their journey. Leela stood at the front of the room, her heart racing. With every step, she willed herself to remember their journey together, the late nights, the laughter, the vulnerability. When she began to speak, she felt the words flow through her like a river, powerful and unyielding. The room slowly became captivated as she revealed not just their project, but the narratives that had shaped them. James stood beside her, a silent pillar of strength, reinforcing her belief in herself. Their presentation ended to a thunderous round of applause. Relief washed over Leela, a tidal wave of disbelief mixed with joy surging through her veins. She had done it, they had done it. As they walked out, the world felt refreshed, their bond even stronger. Leela couldn't hold back her tears of happiness. I didn't think I could face that, James smiled, feeling gratitude and fulfillment. You did it all yourself. With the office door behind them, a symbol of their journey, they stepped into the future, hand in hand, fearless and open to wherever their paths would lead. Moments of doubt would still come, but now they had proven they could face anything together, ready to continue unlocking the doors of life before them, embracing each chapter with courage and hope. And within every shadow they found light, ready to ignite new dreams unwrapped with every step they took. They were more than just coworkers, they were allies, striving for greatness, reveling in the vulnerability of their shared journey. Together they would create a reality woven with persistence, passion, and above all, friendship. Just as the last rays of sunlight slipped behind the skyline, James stood in the hallway, staring at a door that felt like it was calling his name. He'd seen that door every day for weeks, but tonight it held a different weight and urgency. Stay away until you unlock the office door, Leela had said, a warning wrapped in her playful tone but laced with an unmistakable seriousness. The words replayed in his mind as though they were etched in stone. What lay behind that door, and why did she want him to keep his distance? In the bustling office, Leela stood out like a flame, her laughter brightening even the dullest of days. But there was something deeper beneath her bubbly exterior, something that urged him to explore further, to find out why she had chosen those specific words. The door seemed to guard not just a room, but a part of her soul, a truth she wasn't ready to share. His heart racing, he moved toward the door, each step pulling him into a dance between fear and curiosity. He knew he shouldn't be doing this, that perhaps it wasn't his place to pry. but the thought of an undiscovered mystery gnawed at him, and he had to know. As he stood before that worn, wooden door, he felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with anxiety. Part of him wanted to turn back and leave it alone, but the other part, a more adventurous, daring side, urged him to unlock whatever truths lay in wait. The contours of the doorknob felt cool against his palm, and he hesitated, memories of Leela lingering in the back of his mind. In that moment, he remembered her vibrant smile, her passionate discussions about projects they could tackle together, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke of her dreams. Each memory felt like a thread weaving a deeper connection. But what did she hide behind this door? The mystery consumed him. That night after work, the office was empty except for a few flickering lights and the hum of the industrial air conditioning. The silence wrapped around him like a cloak. The other employees had left, and the environment felt almost sacred, the pauses between moments filled with tension. He took a deep breath, and for the first time, he truly focused on the door itself. He noticed the peeling paint and the rusted hinges, details he hadn't considered before. The door wasn't just a barrier. It promised secrets, revelations, perhaps even a glimpse into why Leela seemed both untouchable and profoundly human. James turned away and pulled a chair from a nearby desk. He climbed up to reach the top shelf, where years of forgotten files collected dust and mothballs, the echoes of past employees clinging to the walls. After what felt like an eternity of searching, he stumbled across an old key hidden beneath some outdated documents. His heart raced as he picked it up, a glimmer of hope igniting within him. Was this the key, the one that would unlock the mysteries of that door? He hurried back, every heartbeat echoing in his ears, the promise of adventure tinged with fear propelling him forward. Standing before the door again, he felt the weight of the key in his palm. The cold metal was heavy with potential, a promise of discovery. He inserted it into the lock, feeling a rush of exhilaration as it turned. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open, anticipation pinching at his stomach. The room was filled with dust, the air thick with the scent of forgotten dreams. Papers lined the desk, and old sketches hung on the walls, silent witnesses to a story waiting to be told. He stepped inside, heart drumming in his chest, the sound drowning out everything else. It was as if he had entered a different world. Shadows danced in the dim light, whispering secrets of the past that clamored for attention. As he began to sift through the papers, he found something unexpected. Sketches, blueprints, fragments of projects that spoke of ambition and creativity interwoven with despair. It was clear that each piece told a story that had once held promise but now lay neglected, waiting for someone to remember them. Then he came across a note scribbled hastily in the margins of one of her drawings. The words struck him like a falling brick. It was a crystallization of fear, a stark confession cloaked in vulnerability. Leela had been grappling with something much larger than just her projects. She wrestled with the traps of self-doubt and the heavy chains of past failures. Just then a noise startled him. The door creaked as Leela stepped inside, her expression a mix of shock and anger. She cried, her voice rising as she took in the scene. "I had to know," he replied, his voice steady though his heart raced. "Why did you warn me?" He gestured to the scattered documents, illustrating the depths of her creativity and the burdens of her apprehensions. Her eyes widened in disbelief, a wave of vulnerability crashing over her. "I told you to stay away for a reason," she uttered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Everything in here represents my failures." "Like what? Flawed, human? Leela, we're all a work in progress. Every mistake shapes us," James said, stepping closer, hoping to bridge the chasm of fear that loomed between them. "You can't treat this room like a tomb for your past. It's a canvas, a starting point." "I thought if I hid this part of myself," she said, her voice breaking, "I could simply forget." Her words faded, a gathering of emotions evident in her eyes. She whispered, her vulnerability laid bare. "Then we'll face it together," James offered. "You're not alone in this." A spark lit in her eyes, an understanding that perhaps this was not the end, but rather a beginning, a chance to learn and grow. She asked quietly. "I do," he affirmed, his heart swelling with the weight of all they could accomplish together. "You're a creative powerhouse. This fear, this shadow you've let loom over you." Slowly, the tension upped its pace, retreating under the resolve forming between them. She took a breath, seemingly absorbing the essence of his words. "Okay." With urgency, they began organizing the disarray. As they sifted through the remnants of past dreams, the energy in the room shifted. Every page they turned became a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. They shared stories, personal experiences woven into their work, unraveling layers of their identities in the process. Days turned into weeks, and the old office transformed into a sanctuary of creativity. Their collaboration reached new heights, laughter spilling through the air as they dug deeper, rekindling lost ideas and invigorating aspirations. Late nights turned into moments of shared vulnerability. In that tiny room, they cultivated a partnership that unfolded beautifully. Each project ignited sparks of inspiration, illuminating their friendship as they learned from each other every day. But as they neared the deadline for their presentation to the management team, doubt crept back into the shadows. The fear of judgment whispered ominously, and Leela's anxiety threatened to stifle their rhythms of creation. She pondered, pacing the room with a nervous energy. James stepped up to her, grounding her with his presence. Leela, you've poured your heart and soul into this, and I have too. We've faced the hardest part, confronting your fears. Her voice wavered, wrestling with the fear that had haunted her for so long. Then let's give them a reason to cheer, he replied, determination lighting a fire in his chest. Every great success is built on foundations of risk and resilience. She nodded, the tension slowly melting from her shoulders. You're right. Whatever happens, we've grown. The day of the presentation arrived, the room filled with bright fluorescent lights and expectant faces. As they walked in, Leela's heart raced, the weight of their combined efforts heavy on her mind. But she found comfort in James's reassuring presence. He radiated unwavering belief in her abilities. As the presentation unfolded, Leela spoke with a newfound confidence, infusing her words with every lesson they had learned together. They revealed not just the project, but also the lessons of vulnerability, of strength found in accepting flaws, of rising from the ashes of past failures. With every slide, every word, the room came alive. She felt the energy shift as her passion sparked enlightenment in the audience. James stood by her side, a silent supporter, encouraging her without uttering a single word. Then it happened, the moment they had both longed for. The room erupted in applause, a symphony of approval cascading around them. Relief washed over Leela like a warm tide, and tears brimmed in her eyes. They had finally done it. As they stepped out of the conference room, the air felt lighter. Leela exclaimed, her laughter ringing like music. Thank you for finding your voice, James replied, a smile spreading across his face. You turned fear into fuel. Together, they walked back toward that once ominous door. It had transformed from a barrier into a symbol of their growth and resilience. Final glance back at the office space, Leela felt ready to embrace the future, unafraid. Let's keep moving forward, she said, locking eyes with James. No more hiding. With hearts full of hope, they stepped into the unknown together, ready to unlock all the new doors life had to throw their way, hand in hand, inviting the adventures and uncertainties ahead. Where shadows once lingered, light now beamed, and they walked forward with laughter and courage, ready for whatever awaited them beyond the threshold. Together, he stood alone in the dimly lit office, the faint hum of fluorescent lights flickering above him like ghosts from another time. Each flicker cast shadows that seemed to dance along the walls, and there it was, the door at the end of the hallway, its ancient wood worn and tired. Why did it feel like a sacred pact? As he pulled his gaze back from the door, memories of his laughter with Leela echoed in his mind, the way her eyes sparkled with excitement, how her passion for creativity lit up the office. But wrapped in that brightness was an undercurrent of mystery, a shadow she never revealed. James had enjoyed their playful banter and collaborative spirit, but that door twisted a knot in his stomach. It was just a door, yet it held her secrets, and he couldn't help but wonder if what lay behind it could change everything he thought he knew about her. Days turned into weeks, a monotonous routine filled with reports, meetings, and conversations that never ventured too far from the surface. But every glance toward that door ignited a fire in his mind. What did Leela mean? What could be lurking behind that handle? Her words swirling in his thoughts like a haunting melody. One late evening, the office was nearly empty, the chatter of coworkers fading into a distant hum as the clock ticked closer to the witching hour. The calm enveloped him. With only shadows as his company, he felt drawn to the door as if it had a magnetic pull. He could no longer ignore it. This was the moment. Footsteps echoing softly, he approached the ominous door, half expecting it to whisper secrets as he neared. A pulse of energy surged in him, an intoxicating mix of fear and curiosity swirling in his chest. Cautiously, he reached for the doorknob, suddenly aware of how monumental this moment felt. Testing it lightly, he found the door locked. Disappointment washed over him in a wave, each beat of his heart echoing against the wood. But then, determination filled the void he had to understand. Returning to his desk, he pushed aside papers and clutter, thinking back to his childhood when he would explore hidden corners of his imagination, seeking treasures buried under forgotten memories. That evening, he rummaged through every drawer, every folder, until at last, his fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. His heart raced as he pulled out an old key, covered in dust, nearly forgotten but brimming with purpose. This has to be it, he whispered to himself, excitement coursing through him like electricity. He returned to the door with the key gripped tightly in his hand. Each step felt like a step toward destiny as he inserted the key into the lock. The moment he turned it, a loud click resonated in the quiet office, echoing into the stillness as if to signal the unlocking of not just a door, but of endless possibilities. He took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Inside, the air was thick with dust, heavy with the weight of secrets waiting to be revealed. His heart raced as he flicked the light switch, illuminating a cluttered space filled with forgotten relics, old files, disheveled papers, and design sketches lining the walls. It felt like stepping into a time capsule, a world trapped between the past and the present. He stepped inside, cautious yet exhilarated, as if crossing a threshold between reality and something far grander. Papers sorted haphazardly on the desk caught his attention, the ink faded yet rich with stories. As he leaned closer, he could almost hear the whispers of creativity woven into each design. Then something caught his eye, a stack of old sketches filled with ideas he recognized. Each line was Leela's, each stroke reflecting her spirit. It was a vivid representation of her aspirations, her unfulfilled dreams, and at that moment, a wave of realization washed over him. How long had she kept this part of herself hidden? Beneath the chaotic collection of designs, he unearthed an envelope marked with her name. Trembling, he opened it and unfolded the letter inside. His eyes scanned the page and the words pierced him. "They laughed when I failed. I can't let it happen again." James felt his heart constrict. He understood instantly that this wasn't merely about designs or projects. It was a raw confession, a glimpse into Leela's battles with her self-worth. In a world that expected perfection, she had buried her failures deep, hoping the weight of them wouldn't drown her. As he pondered her words, the door creaked open behind him. Leela stood in the doorway, her eyes wide, emotions swirling like a tempest. She demanded, her voice a mixture of horror and disbelief. "I had to know," he replied, his voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty within him. "Leela, these sketches, they're incredible." Her face blanched, a storm of fear brewing in her gaze. "You can't just come in here like this. I told you to stay away." James said, his confusion deepening as he gestured to the sketches. "No, they're not failures," she fired back, stepping into the room, her voice laced with panic. "These represent the moments where I fell short, where I was laughed at," James said, urgency rising within him. "You can't forget who you are. You're remarkable, and I know there's more to you than this fear. This is your story, Leela." For a moment they stood frozen, the air around them crackled with tension. Leela's shoulders sank, a torrent of emotions crashing through her walls. She whispered, the vulnerability washing over her. James stepped closer, grounding her with his presence. "Then we pick ourselves up, learn and grow from it. You've already shown so much courage by letting me in." As the realization began to settle in, her defenses eased, revealing a flicker of hope amidst the wreckage of her fear. "I do. Let's bring these ideas back to life." His voice held steady, the warmth of his conviction encompassing them like a shield. With a thoughtful nod, Leela stepped toward her sketches, her fingers brushing over the ink as if it were a long-lost friend. "Okay, let's do this," she whispered, strength weaving back into her frame. As they began to work, the cluttered office transformed around them, once depressive shadows shifting into an inviting canvas for new ideas. Together they dug deeper, laughter filling the empty spaces, forging a connection that felt like destiny. Days turned into weeks of late nights spent brainstorming, revising, and creating. Each hurdle became a chance for growth, and James admired Leela more with each passing day. When she spoke about her dreams, her confidence shone like a beacon, illuminating the darkness that had once lingered. But as their deadline approached, doubt and anxiety crept back into Leela's heart. The looming presentation to the management team filled her with trepidation. She paced their makeshift office, nervous energy radiating from her. What if they don't accept it? James moved closer, wrapping his arms around her in a comforting embrace. "Focus on the journey, not just the outcome. We've poured our hearts into this." Her voice wavered, the old shadows creeping back into her heart. "Then we'll face that too, but you have to trust yourself." "Trust in the work we've created together," he replied, his voice steady. As the day of the presentation dawned, Leela felt a wave of apprehension wash over her, a familiar companion trying to pull her back into its clutches. Yet standing in front of the management team, she took a deep breath, remembering the late nights, the laughter, and James's unwavering support. She faced them, vulnerability crashing down like a wave, but this time with clarity. With each word, each presentation slide, she embraced the truth she had buried for so long, the power of resilience residing within imperfections. Her story unfolded beautifully as she showcased their designs, navigating the trials that had initially bound her. Applause erupted in the conference room. Relief flooded her, joy sparking wildly as she turned to James, realization hitting hard. She exclaimed, tears filling her eyes. The weight of her fears fell away, replaced by exhilaration. As they stepped out, laughter ringing between them, she felt lighter. "I can't believe we faced that. Thank you for everything," she said, voice warm. Just as they walked down the hallway, a solemn figure emerged from the shadows, Mr. Lawson, the head of their department, blocking their path. His expression was serious, an underlying tension thickening the air. "I need to speak with you both," he said, his tone heavy with implication. James exchanged a glance with Leela, the excitement instantly replaced by the familiar knot of apprehension in her stomach. He asked, sensing the gravity of the situation, "I need to discuss your project presentation. There's something important you both need to understand," Mr. Lawson said, the shadows behind him stretching like dark claws. In that moment, everything hung in uncertainty. What could he mean? Had their hard work been for nothing? Would the applause fade into silence? Leela's heart raced, and James felt cold steel grip his insides. This wasn't just about their project anymore. The door had unlocked a journey far deeper, and now they stood on the precipice of something monumental, teetering on the edge of revelation. The question lingered in the air like an unspoken truth. What awaited them on the other side of this moment? As Mr. Lawson gestured for them to follow him, the tension deepened, and it became clear. They were about to step into the unknown, their paths intertwining in ways they never anticipated. But now they would face it together, their fears entwined with hope. What lay ahead could change everything.